Meeting called to order. The time is 7:01. Public portion of the meeting begins. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Business Administrator Board Secretary has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, communicated to the Herald News, the Record, and filed with the Clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Clavillo?
Here.
Ms. Ehrentraut?
Here.
Dr. Morell?
Here.
Mr. Palouse?
Here.
Mr. Reicher?
Here.
Mr. Shortway?
Here.
Mr. Totaro?
Here.
Mrs. Scott?
Here. Please join me for the flag salute. Meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and to make comments. During the first opportunity early on the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment, when citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and/or directly related to the operation of the school district. Persons wishing to speak must, upon being recognized, rise, state their name, address, and subject matter. Comments and questions shall be addressed to the board president or presiding officer and shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. The board may or may not respond to issues raised by members of the public at the time they are raised, but will provide a response if and when appropriate. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during the public session should carefully consider their comments, since they could be held personally liable for any statements they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm that the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. Public be heard, agenda items only. Seeing as there's no one here, correspondence, we have none. Budget presentation, Mr. Sprito.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you, good evening everyone. Welcome to our Hawthorne Public Schools annual budget presentation. Our goal this evening is a number of items that I'm going to go through, but our goal really tonight is to provide our parents and community members with an overview of the 2022-2023 budget for the Hawthorne Public Schools. In tonight's presentation will be an update on the progress of our referendum, which was passed, as you know, in September of 2019, as well as some updates in the area of technology. In regard to our referendum projects, although these referendum projects are not funded through our operating budget, but through our referendum funds, each year we like to take this opportunity just to provide an update to our community of the many projects that have been completed, as well as the projects that will be scheduled moving forward. In regard to the budget development process, which obviously we're going to talk about a lot tonight, developing our annual budget is always a challenge, especially with our 2% cap. It's also important, I feel that parents and community members remember that the budget is a plan, right? It's something that's created months prior to implementation, and although it is absolute, although it's finite in its totality, meaning that the numbers will not change, it has to be flexible. Right? Our budget has to be flexible to meet challenges that we face throughout the school year, and COVID is a perfect example of that type of a challenge, where things come up that we have to address that may not be necessarily budgeted, so there has to be some flexibility within our school budget. With that being said, I want the parents and community members to know that this Board of Education and the administration remain cognizant of our fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers. However, we also understand and appreciate the commitment that we have to the staff and the students in the Hawthorne Public Schools, and the importance of quality schools for everyone in the Hawthorne community. And we take all of this into account when developing this budget, which we're going to present to you tonight. And finally, before we get started, I just want to take a moment to thank our PTOs, our Education Foundation, our Special Education Parent Advisory Council for all their support, as well as our private donors for the support they provide us throughout the school year. The support is appreciated and extremely beneficial to our students and our schools. All right, so with that said, let's get started. So again, the goal tonight is to review some of our district highlights in the area of the referendum highlights and technology. We'll then get into the budget itself. We'll give you an overview of the 2022-2023 budget. We'll talk about the tax levy and the impact on our homeowners in town. We'll delve into our revenues and appropriations, as well as our fiscal efficiencies. The final portion of the budget presentation will give an overview of what's included in our budget, specifically in the areas of curriculum instruction and technology for the 2022-2023 school year. So again, let's get started just with talking about the referendum. First of all, I just want to say that we're really excited about all of these renovations and projects that have been completed. They have made a significant difference in our facilities especially, and the students are really enjoying these new renovated spaces. But just to give you an update on some of the things that have been completed, first at the high school and the middle school. All right, so obviously, as you know, we've implemented our one-to-one Chromebook initiative. Couldn't have been better timing with COVID coming and having to be remote, but we've implemented that and we're continuing to support that as part of our budget going forward. At our high school, we've renovated our culinary classroom, and there's a picture there on the slide. You can see a picture of the culinary room. We've renovated our STEM classroom, a physics lab at the high school. We've also installed some graphics in our hallways, gym, and cafeteria, and hopefully for those of you who have attended events at the schools, you've been able to see those graphics. We have completed our air conditioning project in the high school auditorium. We've also completed roof replacements over our main and auxiliary gym and the auditorium at the high school. And we are in the process, actually our window installation is now complete, and we're in the process of completing our interior door replacement at the high school. In the middle school, again, I mentioned our Chromebook initiative. We have completed 2 second floor science labs at Lincoln Middle School. We've completed a renovation of our Lincoln Middle School Media Center. We've replaced boilers at Lincoln Middle School. Again, we've installed wall graphics in our hallway, gym, and cafeteria. And we've completed a partial roof replacement over the gym at Lincoln Middle School. And finally, window and interior door replacements. The window installation is complete. They're just completing the shade installation at Lincoln Middle School, and the interior doors, they're in the process of completing that as well. If we take a look at the elementary schools, so at the elementary schools, there are a lot of consistent projects that have taken place there. So we've done roof projects at all 3 of our schools. Washington School got an entire roof replacement, Jefferson School as well, and Roosevelt School had portions of the roof replaced as part of our referendum. We've expanded the security cameras that are installed at our elementary schools. That's ongoing, but that is something that we've already begun to move forward with. We've replaced the boilers at Roosevelt School. Once again, we've installed graphics in our hallways, gym, and in some cases cafeteria. We've installed those wall graphics in those buildings. We've renovated our media center, art, and music rooms at all 3 elementary schools, and those projects are complete. And again, you can see a couple of pictures on this slide here. The picture to the left is Washington School. The picture to the right is Jefferson School's media center. So I'll give you an idea of some of the renovations. Those are actual pictures of those locations. And once again, we've completed our window installation. The shade installation is in the process of being completed, and the interior doors are in the process of being completed as well. So scheduled for this summer, we have a number of projects taking place starting at in June of 2022, and that will include 2 of our 5 science labs at Hawthorne High School. The other 3 will be renovated in the summer of 2023. We are also renovating our high school art and band rooms this summer. We are embarking on a district-wide fire alarm system upgrade for all 5 of our schools, as well as there's a possibility that the generators and electrical upgrades could take place this summer as well. If not, that will be moved to the following summer as well. But that is all on the docket for this summer, which would basically leave us with 3 of our science labs to do in the summer of 2023 at the high school, our media center at the high school, and our elevator at the high school. Those, I believe, would be the final projects, which would be in the summer of 2023. Really excited about all the renovations. I can tell you the students are really enjoying the new spaces, appreciate the community support in this referendum. It has made a significant difference in our schools, not just in the facilities, but in the security of our schools with these upgraded doors and windows. It's been a great addition, and as well as it looks nice as well. So we appreciate the support for that. And again, I encourage everybody to take a look at our website, our district website. There's a link on there for the referendum, and there are pictures of all of these projects for all schools. So please, I encourage you to take a look at those pictures if you get a chance. All right. One last item in regard to just looking back at this past year in the area of technology. I just want to update some of the things we're doing in the area of technology. So as I mentioned, we purchased some additional student devices. That's an ongoing purchase for us because we'll be replacing devices as we move forward. Instead of replacing all the devices at once, it's a rotating schedule that devices will be replaced and then old devices will be transferred down to our elementary schools. We also purchased one-to-one elementary PCs for our staff. So in year 1, we purchased PCs for all of our high school staff. They were using old Chromebooks. So year 1 was the high school staff, and this is year 2, where we purchased elementary PCs for our elementary staff to use throughout the buildings. The nice part about that is everyone having a PC, if they're changing rooms, they can easily connect in whatever room that they're working in and begin instruction, as opposed to having to log into a computer every time they go into a different space. And of course, they can take them with them. They're mobile, so it gives them some flexibility. We completed a network infrastructure upgrade, our network switches, and we're going to talk about that in the new budget as well, and I'll kind of explain it as we get into the new budget of what that means and why that's necessary. This year, we also completed a rapid security assessment of our entire district network, and that was really done to ensure that we're doing everything we can to keep our students and our staff safe in school. So we completed a security assessment. Based on that assessment, we have upgraded our district firewall to support additional devices, and we've added redundancy, which provide multiple layers of network security. So in other words, there's in essence layers of firewall, so that if for some reason that first one doesn't do the job that it's purposed to do, that the second one will then protect our students and staff. So we've added that. We've also upgraded our antivirus and cybersecurity system to improve our security posture for all our individual devices. So the firewall is really for the entire network, as where the antivirus and the cybersecurity is more for the individual student and staff devices. So again, we've done a lot of work with our network and our network security. We feel it's really important. If we're using these devices more often, we want to make sure that students are safe in that process. And finally, we've added additional door access scanners, and basically what that means is that our doors, as the board is aware, are locked all the time. And for access during the day, we have key fobs, or now we have IDs that allow teachers and staff to scan in and out so that we can keep the doors locked if they still have access to the building. It also, we've also shared those key fobs with our Hawthorne Police Department to give them quick access so they're not fumbling with keys if they need to get into our schools quickly. And again, we've added some security cameras to improve our district security. All right, so again, we're really proud of all these accomplishments, and this is just an overview. I mean, there's so much more that I could talk about, but this gives you a general idea of some of the highlights in the referendum in the area of technology. We look forward to the additional renovations and the additional technology upgrades, which I'm going to get into in our new budget. So with that said, let's get into the budget. So as you can see here, our 2022-2023 budget supports all of our current instructional staffing and programs, as well as our facilities, and a total enrollment of 2,404 students. Our total budget is $53,755,918. In regard to our tax levy, as you can see from the top line of this chart, if you look at the top line, the general tax levy line, you'll see that that actually shows that it's a 2.5% increase, and I'll explain why that is. So if you look at the top line of this chart, we have availed ourselves, the district has availed itself of $281,932 of banked cap, which are funds that are available to the school district and that do expire if we don't avail ourselves of that money. That does translate into a tax levy increase above the statutory 2% at 2.5. However, if you look at line 2, you'll see that we were able to use debt service fund balance to offset that tax levy. So we saw a decrease in our debt service line, and that effectively created an overall tax increase to the residents of Hawthorne at 2%, which is at the 2%, the statutory 2% increase, right? What does that mean for the homeowner in Hawthorne? Well, that means that on the average assessed home of $380,850, and that is the average assessed home value in Hawthorne, that is at $109.30 increase for the year, or $9.11 a month. And that is inclusive of our referendum funds. That includes the funds, to support the referendum that were passed, again, in that referendum vote in 2019. Okay, if we look at the revenue slide, there's a graph here, and this graph shows our sources of revenue. And as you can see, the majority of our revenue comes through our tax levy. I mean, that's pretty well known that our tax levy is generally the main source of revenue for the district. However, we do get additional funding from things like state aid, fund balance and miscellaneous revenue, and special revenue. And I can tell you that the board and the administration have looked at other ways of generating revenue, accepting tuition students as an example, looking for other districts that are willing to send students to our special education programs, such as our Bear Cave, and paying tuition to the district. Those are ways that we can generate revenue, and we continue to pursue those opportunities to try to find ways to generate revenue for the district. One of the areas that I'd like to talk a little bit about tonight, which is a little bit different than in years past, is the special revenue section. So typically, that special revenue section on this graph makes up about 3% of our revenue, about $1 million. It varies a little bit year to year, okay? This year, you'll see that it makes up 8.5%, or $4.5 million. And that is because of funding that came over the last couple of years, known as APR ESSER funding, or American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief Funding. And that was funding that was provided to all school districts due to COVID. It does expire, that funding, in 2024. But that is why that number is different than in years past. In years past, again, it was a lot lower, but because of this additional funding, that revenue area has increased. Okay, I can tell you that additional funding has played an important role in our district, not just in Hawthorne, but in a lot of districts, because it's provided support, additional instructional staff to address learning loss, additional supplies, additional professional development. It's provided mental health supports and services, and much more. I can go on and on about some of the things that have been provided because of the ESSER funding. It does expire in 2024, and we, as a district, have already begun to discuss how we can, when this ESSER funding does expire, how we can begin to incorporate some of these additional staff positions and supports that we've put in place into our operating budget, which is obviously going to be a challenge with a 2% increase, but it's already conversations that we're having currently about how we can do that in future years. But I just bring that up because it is different than in past years, and you may see that and say, well, why is it such a significant difference from the last 3 or 4 years where that number was about $1 million, or about 3% of their revenue? All right. So again, to look a little further at our revenues, if you look at this chart, you'll see that, again, you see the tax levy, that's the money raised through taxes. You will also see that we got additional state aid this year, which played an important role for us in helping to support our budget. We were very fortunate to get additional state aid. You will also see a line budgeted fund balance. Now, again, you'll see a pretty significant increase there as well. And again, related to COVID, typically our fund balance, we have about 2% of our budget in surplus, allowable surplus in this fund balance line. Because of COVID, we were able to increase that to 4%. Okay, but the good news is we can avail ourselves of that money in our current budget for 2022 and 2023 with no impact to our taxpayer. All right, so that's why you'll see a significant increase there, because we were permitted to increase that number from 2% to 4%. That will change going forward. That'll be back to 2%. All right, but at this point, we can avail ourselves of that money with no impact to our taxpayers. You'll also see right below that we budgeted $200,000 as a withdrawal from our capital reserve account, which we've been able to build up over a number of years. We've been able to put some money into that capital reserve account, and now we can withdraw that money and budget that money to do some projects, specifically 2 repaving projects. One repaving of a parking lot at the high school, and repaving of the parking lots at Jefferson School, which are much needed replacements for those projects. But again, that's money that we've been able to save over a number of years and now can avail ourselves of to support these renovations. All right, if we look at our appropriations slide, this slide shows all of our appropriations for the school year. It's also divided, just so you're aware, this graph is divided into categories which mimic the categories that the state requires for school districts to report as part of our district budget. And you'll see that more than half of our total costs are associated with the regular and special education instruction, which includes salaries, and the benefits category. That makes up about 57% of the appropriations, a little more than half of our costs or our appropriations in the district. You'll also see that out-of-district tuition costs, and we're going to talk about this on the next slide in a second, that they've increased, as well as our transportation costs. They've increased significantly this year, and we anticipate that will continue to follow that trend into the 2022-2023 school year. All right, but just to highlight some of the areas there. And again, if you take a look at the next slide, which is our appropriations, you'll see this chart. You can see that the out-of-district tuition line has increased. And a lot of that is due to our PCTI numbers, our Passaic County Tech numbers. We're anticipating approximately 164 students attending PCTI in the fall. So there is an increase in that line. Also in the instruction line, which includes but is not limited to teacher salaries, obviously there's increases in salaries, which is a big part of that increase. And if you continue down, transportation, facilities, maintenance, and energy costs have all increased at a greater pace than what we're able to increase our budget. But that figure also includes the $200,000 withdrawn from capital for the capital projects that I just mentioned. That's included in that line: transportation, maintenance, custodial, capital projects. It's all included in there. All right. You will notice that there's a decrease in our athletics and co-curricular. However, we are not eliminating any program, not eliminating any athletic teams or sports or co-curricular activities. We just made some strategic cuts in that budget. But again, it does not affect any of our current programs. And in fact, I'm going to talk about an additional program that we'll be running next year in spite of that. All right. And the last slide before we get into the next portion of what our budget supports is our fiscal efficiency. So there are things that we can do as a school district to try to save money, where we can work together with other districts or with the town in order to save money for our taxpayers. So we participate in an insurance consortium for liability and workers' comp insurance, which saves us money because there's numerous districts that participate. We participate in a statewide consortium to purchase our internet access. We participate in bid consortiums for all instructional and office supplies, technology equipment, and special ed transportation. So again, it's because we're in with other districts, it allows us to save a little money. We participate in the E-rate program for telecommunications. Our cafeteria services are outsourced. And finally, we do share services with the borough for garbage, recycling, and school security. And I just like to share this every year, that we share services for garbage and recycling, but more importantly to me is the school security feature that since the implementation of our security guards at our schools, the borough has supported and contributed to the cost of those security guards from day one, and that continues into next school year. Okay, so going into the budget specifics in terms of what's included in this next budget for the next school year. Again, I mentioned it includes all of our current instructional staffing in all of our schools. We're fortunate not to have to cut any positions And in fact, as I mentioned, with the ESSER funding, we're able to continue to maintain some of the new positions that we've added this year, specifically in the areas of mental health and some of our basic skills teachers to support learning loss and other areas as well. It supports all of our current academic courses, our extracurricular activities, our clubs, and we've actually added some clubs over the past year. We're excited about that, and just provides additional opportunities for our students after school. So we'll continue to look at opportunities there, as well as our athletic programs. And this includes a new hockey co-op, which means that we will be participating in a hockey program. Our students will have the opportunity to participate in ice hockey with Lakeland and Waldwick, and I can share with the board that that was approved. I just received an email this week that it was approved by the league and the NJSIAA, so it is officially approved. So what's going to happen, just so the board is aware, I did speak with the athletic director at Lakeland. They'll be hosting some parent nights in Hawthorne. They'll be bringing some of their current players and inviting anyone who's interested in coming, and they'll just talk to them about how it works. They want to try to involve people right away, so they'll be doing something hopefully before the end of the school year to host some parent nights and get parents to understand how the co-op will work and what it will look like. They are also in the process of renovating or upgrading their uniforms to include Hawthorne and Waldwick as well. So that'll all be discussed at the parent nights, but that is an approved program for next year, so we're excited about that. This budget supports all of our one-to-one devices and our technology upgrades, which again we're going to talk about in a little more depth in a few minutes. It supports ongoing professional development at all levels, curricular revisions, and I'm going to talk about where and what particular areas as we get into the next couple of slides. Staffing and materials for our transition program and our alternative program. Obviously that will continue going forward as well. All right, so specifically, let's talk about the high school for a few minutes. So the high school budget for 2022-2023, again, maintains all of our current academic courses and programs, includes 18 advanced placement courses at the high school. It supports the development of curriculum for the following new courses: environmental and earth science, and that new course is in place because of our Physics First, the shift to Physics First, where our freshmen will be taking physics, or physics will be taken the freshman year. So we're adding an additional course, environmental and earth science. We'll be adding a 20th century American pop culture course, digital marketing, fashion and marketing 2, economics, 3D art, and AP government and politics. So those are new courses that we're excited to be offering going forward. We'll be revising curriculum in the areas of social studies, science, health, phys ed, and world language. You'll see that's a pretty consistent pattern throughout all of our grade levels, and we'll talk about that as we get into the middle school and the elementary schools. It also allows for the purchase of new AP US History textbooks, Geometry and Algebra 2 textbooks, Sports Medicine textbooks, and online resources for all of our social studies courses at the high school. It supports the implementation of a summer college boot camp for our rising seniors this summer. For the first time, we'll be offering a summer college boot camp, which we're excited about, and I think it's a great opportunity for our juniors to kind of get everything organized and ready for that application process in the fall. And finally, for continued professional development opportunities for all of our staff. Take a look at the middle school. Again, this budget maintains all of our academic courses and programs at the middle school. It will fund curricular revisions. Again, as you see, I told you there's a common theme: social studies, science, health, and physical education. It supports the purchase of new materials and supplies for health and phys ed to coincide with the new student learning standards. Allows for the purchase of new online resources for our social studies courses at the middle school. It also supports the purchase of programs, online resources, and one is Edpuzzle and one is Learning Ally. And these are resources in all content areas, not specifically to one subject area, but for all content areas. And again, continued PD for our staff at the middle school. And finally, at the elementary schools, this budget supports the Renaissance learning and our benchmark assessments and our assessments throughout the year for our New Jersey Tiered System of Supports, our NJTSS program. It supports the purchase of Mystery Science for K-5 Science, Inquiry Journeys, K-5 Social Studies, and the Great Body Shop for K-5 Health. So some new materials in those subject areas. Again, curricular revisions in science, social studies, and phys ed and health, and PD opportunities, and this includes our Conquer Math training, which we've been availing ourselves of at all levels, but it will continue at the elementary school, and training for some of the new programs that I listed above in this particular slide. And then the final area that I'll just quickly talk about is our technology highlights. So obviously the new budget continues to support the one-to-one initiative, and I say continues because, as I said, it'll be a rotating schedule of replacement for those one-to-one devices as students age out, whether it be at the the middle school or the high school. Those devices will be replenished. So if a student gets one freshman year and has it for 4 years, obviously those devices are now 4 years old, so the new students coming in will get new devices. So it's a rotating schedule. We'll continue our support of staff PCs and our one-to-one initiative for our staff. It will include a purchase of new computers, and I say new computers, and if you look, there's a picture on this slide. The picture of the computers in the bottom picture on that slide were computers that our tech department actually built for our STEM class. We purchased all of the components, and they were built by our tech department. We're going to be purchasing those and building some computers for our broadcasting class and our media arts classes at the high school, so we're excited about that. Purchase of 2 new laser projectors for our renovated 2 new science labs at Hawthorne High School. It will include the installation of new state-of-the-art recording studio equipment in the newly renovated music/band room at Hawthorne High School. It will include the expansion of our network infrastructure. So one of the things that has to happen is as we add new devices, new equipment, right? We purchase, these talk about laser projectors or additional devices or new programs. We have to continue to upgrade our infrastructure to support all those changes. So that's why you saw that we had to do some of that this year, and we'll continue to do that going forward. And we'll continue to upgrade that infrastructure to ensure that we can support all of the new things that we're trying to implement. Because obviously it's wonderful to have, but if they're not supported by our infrastructure, then they're useless to us. So it's important that we continue to support the growth of that infrastructure to support these new programs. So those are important for our classroom renovations and all the additional technology purchases that we'll be making. And finally, one of the things we'll be adding this year is multi-factor authentication for our staff to further enhance security. Again, just an additional security measure to make sure that everyone in our district is safe while they're using these devices or using this technology and working online, whether it be the online resources that we have or just using those devices through our Google platform. Really important that we make sure that we protect all of our students and staff. So in closing, I just want to, before I turn it back over to Mrs. Goff and the board, I just want to say a couple of things. Number one, I want to thank Ms. Ambrose for her efforts in preparing this budget. It's never an easy task, but she's done a great job her and I working together with our administrators to put together, I think, a budget that supports our growth, our continued growth. So I appreciate all that she's done. I want to thank the administrative team for their assistance. Again, this doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that we go through. The process starts in November, and it concludes today. I mean, this is months that this process happens. It includes input from the board, from our administrative team, and it's not an easy process, but I appreciate everyone who contributed to it to make it, to help us get to where we are here today. The other thing I'll say is this: obviously, our goal is to continue to grow. And I feel like we've done a lot of positive things. We've made a lot of positive changes, but there's still room for growth. And I know that, and I understand that, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to improve our instruction, to provide some additional resources and opportunities for our kids going forward. And I think this budget does allow for that, but that's something that we're going to strive to do every single year. I don't want people to think that we do one thing and we're satisfied with where we are. There's always room to grow, always. And I'm the first to say it, and I'll continue to say it as long as I sit in the seat, all right? And I believe in that. So we're going to continue to do everything we can to continue to grow and support our students in their growth, because that's the most important thing. We're excited about where we are. I feel like we're getting back to a more normal routine, which is great. It's been a challenge over the last 2 years, but I really feel like things are starting to get back to a normal routine. We've got a lot of end of the year activities coming up, and we're really getting, every day I feel like we get closer to a more normal routine. But we're looking forward to the very successful end to this school year and another positive school year in 2022-2023. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll stop talking, is that this presentation is currently available on our website. If you go to the district website, under the Board of Education meeting tab, there is a link there that you can click on and view this presentation, and I will leave it there going forward. So it is available immediately for anyone who missed it or would like to go back and review it. And of course, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the community or the parents may have. With that being said, I'll turn it back over to you, Mrs. Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Spirito. Mr. Clavijo, Finance and Administration.
Thank you, Madam President. Action items. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Finance and Administration recommends the following resolutions. On page 3, F1, approval of the budget for the 2022-2023 school year for expenditures and revenue of $53,755,918. As Mr. Spirito mentioned, it includes the bank cap of $281,932. On page 4, F2, which is the approval of withdrawal from capital reserve. F3, approval of statement of purpose. And F4 and F5. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Palouse. Any discussion?
Yes. I wanted to echo Mr. Spirito's comments about the budget. I'm appreciative of Ms. Ambrose's first budget cycle here in Hawthorne, and of Mr. Spirito's guidance. Specifically, Ms. Ambrose, I appreciate your patience in taking the time to explain the process, especially for me as a second-year board member. I think that's the proper way to say it. The first year I was just trying to figure out what was coming and going, but the fact that you took the time to explain and answer any questions and provide clarity, I appreciate that of you, to really providing the instructional component of really understanding the budget and the time that it took, all the months. So I just wanted to acknowledge that effort from your part. I also want to acknowledge the administration in presenting a budget that, given the parameters of a 2% cap, and even with everything with the I guess we never know, like you said, the flexibility of what expenses are going to be, and the difficulty, especially with transportation and out-of-district costs. But it was always vital to ensure that we were providing a quality instruction. And so I appreciate that commitment from you as well.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you. Oh, one question. When is the user-friendly budget would be available?
It should be up tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I just have just a couple comments. As Mr. Spirito said as well, and Dr. Morell, thank you to Mrs. Ambrose and administration. Job well done, as always. A couple things I just wanted to note for the public as well, and parents specifically. You stated about the special services, but actually, just special revenue. But the state aid is also another area that we may not be able to forecast. So I think that just should be noted again, that is another potential loss, if you will, that we don't know, and a testament to the administration and how we are really having to be pliable to what comes at us, right? And then the other thing I noted was, if I'm not mistaken, the two-step authentication. That, if I'm not mistaken, is also a direct result, because of the world we're living in today. Insurance carriers are mandating that is something that is required, which is, again, an additional cost to the district that we would have never have previously accounted for. So to be able to do all these things, and on top of being able to overcome the last 2 years that we've had the challenges of, is pretty amazing and a testament to our district. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Right here. On behalf of the Finance Committee, I'd also like to extend the gratitude to everybody that's responsible for keeping the budget at that 2%. Starting with Ms. Ambrose, thank you. This year was your first year, and all the moving pieces that you have to deal with, so we appreciate that, Mrs. Spirito. At this point, this is the 9th year on the Finance Committee, and it doesn't seem like there's any easy year. So, on behalf of the committee, including Mr. Turco, who's no longer with us, who's over the years has been a great source of a wealth of knowledge for us, we just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I will echo my fellow board member sentiments and say once again, to the public, it appears that everything is smooth, and that absolutely is the case, but there's a lot of work that goes in to this, a lot of unexpected bumps along the way. I'm eternally grateful to you both and to your staff. Who would have known, who could have predicted that transportation would be something that would be affected so heavily by COVID? I mean, I don't think I can really stress that, how it affected that. It just was a strange byproduct. There's other things like that have come up. And again, you guys are like the mom and dad of the board who solve problems behind closed doors, and then we just get to reap the good benefits of it, but we're very appreciative. This is my 10th budget season here, and though time is increasingly more difficult and the climate that we live in, but it's amazing that we can continue to provide everything that we do, not affect the child in the classroom, actually give them more. It always amazes me that you guys are able to do that. You're like magicians. So I'm very grateful to both of you for that. And again, I don't think the public really knows what goes on, because until I sat on a finance committee, I didn't know what really went on. So there's so many moving parts, and it's just really really amazing that you guys can pull this off, and we're very, very thankful for that. In light of nobody else having any discussion, a roll call, please.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Clavio?
Yes.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Dr. Morell?
Yes.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Raisher?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes. And Ms. Erentraut, personnel.
The following resolution is pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools. P1 on page 5. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Clavijo. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Totaro?
Yes.
Mr. Clavio?
Yes.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Dr. Morell?
Yes.
Mr. Palouse?
Yes.
Mr. Raisher?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Goff?
Yes. Public be heard. Seeing as there are no members of the audience, general comments and questions from the board related to the school district. I will say that the Lady Bears, the flag football team, will be playing tomorrow at 7 p.m. here on our own field. 7:30.
7:30.
Oh, okay.
It was supposed to be 7.
Okay. I was like, oh, I just snapped that picture to myself, so I said the right time. So 7:30 p.m. on our own field. Very exciting. They've had a really great season. That's amazing. Another example of just how we seem to be able to continue to offer more to our students despite the obstacles.
The food stand will be open.
Oh, that's an exciting
Just trying to
factor.
entice people.
Thank you,
because
Dr. Morell. It is enticing.
I'm going to be working it, so come out.
Okay.
Very, very awesome. I'll also let you guys know that Hawthorne Lacrosse Day will be May 7th, I think on our own field as well. The recreational team will be joining the high school team. Not sure about the food stand. It is.
The food stand will be open that day.
Dr. Morell's going to work it at this point. Very exciting season for the Hawthorne Lacrosse team. It is their 10th year. It is their 10th season, much like the hockey team was brought about by some parents advocating, and we are 10 years later. So it's awesome to see that be a full decade old.
Wow.
That is it on my end for general comments and questions. Anybody else on that side?
I'd like to, since you're mentioning everything
Of
that's
course,
happening.
mention away.
Thursday through Sunday is the high school play.
Oh, yes.
I don't believe the food stand's gonna be open. But there's like 5 shows, so hopefully you can get a chance to come check it out.
Absolutely.
Just purchased tickets at the door, Mr. Sprito?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding us. And the LMS play, I believe,
It's May.
it'll be after our meeting. Just want to make sure that.
I don't know. No, I think it's before the May.
Right before it.
I want to say it's like May 6th or something like that.
I do think it's before our next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No?
Just look quick. I don't remember the exact date, I can tell you.
And again, the high school play is High School Musical, and the middle school play is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes.
Or Willy Wonka, I never know which one,
Willy Wonka.
which adaptation they're doing, but
So.
both very exciting.
It is, the Lincoln is May 6th, Friday, May 6th.
Okay, May 6th.
At Lincoln Middle School. It's not at the high school. Usually at the high school, they're actually doing it at the
Oh,
middle
that's
school.
cool. That's cool.
At Lincoln Middle School.
Any new business? From this side. Old business. We're all good? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Carr, second by Mr. Kalous. That was good and planned. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Clavijo?
Yes.
Ms. Erentraut?
Yes.
Dr. Morel?
Yes.
Mr. Kalous?
Yes.
Mr. Raisher?
Yes.
Mr. Shortway?
Yes.
Mr. Sturtaro?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobb?
Yes. See you guys on May 10th.
You have any-